President Trump celebrated after the Supreme Court's decision. Here's that moment.
When did it come out? Just now?
No, it came out this morning, but basically very much narrows the Voting Rights Act.
Was it considered a win for who?
A win for Republicans.
I love it.
CNN's chief data analyst Harry Enton running the numbers on this one. Harry, let's kind of baseline it for everyone right now. How is the president doing right now with African-American voters, with black voters now versus this point in the first term?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now in the numbers is President Trump and the Republican Party are chipping away at the long-term advantage that Democrats have had with black voters, with African-Americans. You can see it right here.
More from Harry Enton at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But first, let's head to the Supreme Court, where Justice Sam Alito wrote a 6-3 majority opinion on the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which was supposed to protect minority voters, especially Black Americans, from being shut out of elections. Democrats have enforced it by making sure districts aren't drawn in a way that weakens their voting power. So in Louisiana, court said, you've got a large black population there. Should probably have 2 districts where black voters can elect their candidate of choice, not just one. Lawmakers responded by drawing a second majority black district. But here's a twist. The Supreme Court stepped in and said, that map went too far. Why? Because race appeared to be the main factor used to draw that district. And under the Constitution, that's a problem. Now, on one hand, the law says protect minority voting. On the other hand, the Constitution says you can't sort people primarily by race. It's like trying to fix unfair teams in sports, but you're not allowed to pick players based on race only. You can adjust the teams, just not that way. That's the balancing act, and Louisiana shows the exact conflict. The government tried to draw districts to help black voters elect representatives, but the Supreme Court said they relied too much on race to do it under the U.S. Constitution. Here's Will Kane to break it down even further. Take a look.
A major decision out of the Supreme Court, and it could reshape political power for decades. The court striking down Louisiana's redrawn congressional map in a 6-3 ruling, saying the state relied too heavily on race. Justice Alito writing, because the Voting Rights Act did not require Louisiana to create an additional majority-minority district, no compelling interest justified the state's use of race. That map is an unconstitutional gerrymander. Now, this ruling narrows how the Voting Rights Act can be used, and it could have a massive impact. Let's take a look over the wall. The Supreme Court said that states cannot draw congressional boundaries to create majority-minority districts. In other words, draw gerrymandered districts to ensure that, for example, you have a black congressman or congresswoman. Now, a lot of states across, notably the South, have done so over the last several decades. Presumably, all of those maps are now up in the air, capable of being redrawn. Up to a dozen House seats could shift. Democrats, of course, are calling the decision devastating, and they're moving quickly into full-on panic.
This is just the 21st century version. This is Jim Crow in new clothes.
It's the end of an era. This is the bill that John Lewis was beaten almost to death to get passed. This was the crowning achievement of the civil rights era, the crowning achievement of Dr. King's life work. It's part of why he was murdered.
We just can't sit back here and do nothing. We're going to play their game, and we're going to beat them at it.
In the words of Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, words that he has now echoed over several decisions, the best way to stop discriminating on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race. Don't draw congressional boundaries based upon race. And if states do that, which Florida did very quickly, as you can see, then it could give Republicans 4 more House seats from Florida alone. There are, of course, going to be legal challenges. And Democrats are fighting. They're fighting hard because this threatens power, not only because of redrawn maps, but because come 2030, with the United States Census, people in this country moving from blue states to red states will also shift power.
Now, as you can imagine, Democrats were not happy with the court's 6-3 ruling. The reaction was swift. Among the most vocal critics was the Congressional Black Caucus, led by Hakeem the Scheme Jeffries. The debate quickly spilled over into the media. Now, over on The View, co-host Sunny Hostin did not hold back, expressing strong disapproval of what she described as disgusting, blatant racism, just like she always does. Let's take a look at how it all unfolded. Watch this.
I thank Chairwoman Yvette Clarke and all of the distinguished members of the Congressional Black Caucus. Today's decision by this illegitimate Supreme Court majority strikes a blow against the Voting Rights Act and is designed to undermine the ability of communities of color all across this country to elect their candidate of choice. But we're not here to step back, we're here to fight back.
Yes.
Now, when this decision came out earlier today, it's an unacceptable decision, but not an unexpected decision. Because this isn't even really the Roberts Court. It's the Trump Court.
Yes.
And what we would expect from the Trump Court is an effort to continue their scheme to suppress the vote and rig the midterm elections and beyond.
Alito argued that the vast social change has occurred throughout the country, and particularly in the South, indicating that racism no longer exists in this country. I can tell you, as a black woman, that my father was born in 1949. He remembers segregated schools. He remembers segregated water fountains. He remembers that he did not have full civil rights. And he told me when I turned 40 years old that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And he is still alive today, and I am still alive today, and I have been discriminated against. And now I have to tell my children that they have less civil rights than I did when I was born.
That's true.
That is disgusting, despicable, and I am devastated by this particular Supreme Court decision, even though, Whoopi, we did know this was coming.
What about, wait a second, what about Clarence Thomas? Didn't he stick up for his own vote?
He did not.
He did not.
No.
And
He
by
was
the
part
way,
of the majority.
Now, did you catch that last conversation at the end of that video? Joy Behar turns to Sonny and Whoopi, the 2 cast members who identify as black, and asks, what about Clarence Thomas? Did he stand up for his own people? And right on cue, without hesitation, they say, oh, no, of course not. Now think about that for a second. That right there is what people see as real racism. The idea that Justice Thomas is somehow obligated to vote the same way Ketanji Brown Jackson does simply because of the color of his skin. As if independent thought isn't allowed. As if the Constitution takes a back seat to political expectations. Another thing that stood out in that clip, the name of that group, the Congressional Black Caucus, a group defined entirely by race. So the question becomes, would anyone else be allowed in? Or is that line drawn pretty clearly? These are just a couple examples of why many Americans are growing frustrated. They're calling it black fatigue. People who are tired of being told how they're supposed to think, how they're supposed to vote, and what they're supposed to believe. Or else face labels like sellout, Uncle Tom, racist, fascist. The same accusations we hear over and over again anytime someone steps out of the line politically. Now more than ever, we're seeing black voters begin to move across party lines. And it's not just talk. It's showing up in the numbers. And when it comes to breaking down the numbers, there's no one better than CNN's own Harriet Enton. So let's wrap this up with the way we started. Take it away, Harry.
I think what we're seeing right now in the numbers is President Trump and the Republican Party are chipping away at the long-term advantage that Democrats have had with black voters, with African Americans. You can see it right here. Look, Trump's approval among African Americans at this point in term one, he was at 12%. You know, he's been losing ground with a lot of people. He's gaining ground with African Americans. He's up to 16% at this point. And you say, this isn't that big of a shift. But I will tell you, Republicans absolutely love this shift that's going on because Democrats have had such a long-term advantage. The fact that he's actually gaining ground versus where he was in term number one, this has major implications for elections down the line because Democrats, especially in a lot of these tight races, you talk about places like Georgia, right down in the South, you see this type of movement for Trump actually gaining ground. This could have major ramifications and help put Republicans over the top in a number of southern places in the midterm elections.
But do you see this as part of a bigger trend?
I see this as absolutely part of a bigger trend. Donald Trump's Republican Party is absolutely gaining ground, not just him gaining in terms of his approval rating, but look at the party ID margin, Kate, because this to me was absolutely stunning. Look at this party ID margin among African Americans. At this point in Trump term number one, Democrats had a 63-point advantage. That is absolutely fallen. Look at where it is now. A double-digit shift away. Democrats, of course, still have the advantage, but it's a 12-point shift to the Republican Party. And I look back through Gallup's records. They sent me their records. And this, in fact, lead that Democrats have is actually smaller than any lead from 2006 to 2021. So Democrats are leading. But again, we're talking about chipping away. Republicans are chipping away at this long-term advantage that Democrats have had among African Americans. We see it in terms of Trump's approval rating, and we even see it to a wider degree among the party ID margin, where all of a sudden there are a number of African Americans who are walking away from the Democratic Party and a number of them who are walking into the Republican tent.
That is very interesting, looking at that past Gallup information.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the race for control in Congress?
Okay, so you see this right here. You see this 51-point advantage that Democrats have, significantly less than you see that 63-point advantage. And what we will note was back in 2024, right, Donald Trump put in a historically strong performance among African Americans. Democrats performed the worst in a generation. Have they gained any of that coalition back from where they fell down to in 2024? But take a look here. Okay. Choice for election among African Americans. Kamala Harris was leading amongst that group in the pre-election polling by 63 points. Are Democrats gaining back any of that ground? It's a 62-point advantage now. Republicans are holding on to the gains that they made among African Americans in 2024. Republicans are gaining among African Americans. They are chipping away at that long-term advantage. The Donald Trump-led Republican Party is making gains among African Americans that we simply put have not seen the Republican Party make in a generation.
Fascinating. Good to see you here. Thanks
Nice
so
to
much
see
for
you.
All right, everybody. I just want to take a moment to sincerely thank you for watching the show. It truly means a lot to me and to the continued growth of this channel. Make sure to drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from you on this one. What do you think about the High Court's 6-3 ruling and the Democrats' response to it? And what's your take on Harry Enton's breakdown of the numbers surrounding the all-important black vote? If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and go ahead and smash that notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, be sure to check out our previous video where we dive into the latest flare-up between Jimbo Kimmel and the Trumps. If you missed it, don't worry. It's coming up right now. Take care, and we'll see you on the next one.